Imagine watching your child take their final breath and you can't even scream for help. No words exist, no way to call for medicine, no way to warn others of the danger creeping toward your family. This was humanity 300,000 years ago, trapped in a prison of silence that killed more people than any war, famine, or plague in history. You're about to witness the most dangerous gamble our species ever took. How a random mutation in the human brain either saved us all or should have destroyed us completely. Because what happened next changed everything, and the consequences are still unfolding today in ways that will shock you. Picture your ancestor, a woman just like you, walking through the deadly African wilderness. Her heart pounds as she spots the predator. Golden eyes lock onto hers. Death circles closer. She opens her mouth to warn her family, but only desperate grunts escape. Her children don't understand. They keep playing. The beast moves closer. She waves her arms frantically, pointing at the danger, praying someone will understand her primitive signals. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't understand, families disappear forever. No tombstones, no memories, just gone. But she's lucky compared to other creatures. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, can only make about 30 different sounds. They grunt for food, screech for danger, make soft sounds for comfort. But here's what makes it heartbreaking. They can never combine these sounds to create new meanings. A mother chimp can't tell her baby about the beautiful red fruit she found yesterday near the tall tree by the flowing river. She's forever locked in the present moment, unable to share the wisdom that could save her child's life. Yet somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened inside the human brain. Think of it like this. Imagine if you could only use 26 letters to write exactly 26 different things. Then suddenly, you discover you can combine those same letters to write every story, every poem, every love letter, every scientific discovery that will ever exist. That's what happened to human minds. Scientists call this breakthrough infinite combinatorial capacity, but what they're really describing is magic. Pure, life-saving magic. Our ancestors had just unlocked humanity's first superpower. But every superhero origin story comes with a terrible price, and this one nearly cost us everything. Because what happened next split our species forever, creating a gap so vast that those who mastered this new power would rule the earth, while those who didn't would vanish without a trace. The question is, what were the first words that saved humanity, and why did some groups survive while others disappeared into the darkness of forgotten history? But she's lucky compared to other creatures. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, can only make about 30 different sounds. They grunt for food, screech for danger, make soft sounds for comfort. But here's what makes it heartbreaking. They can never combine these sounds to create new meanings. A mother chimp can't tell her baby about the beautiful red fruit she found yesterday near the tall tree by the flowing river. She's forever locked in the present moment, unable to share the wisdom that could save her child's life. Yet somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened inside the human brain. Think of it like this. Imagine if you could only use 26 letters to write exactly 26 different things. Then suddenly, you discover you can combine those same letters to write every story, every poem, every love letter, every scientific discovery that will ever exist. That's what happened to human minds. Scientists call this breakthrough infinite combinatorial capacity, but what they're really describing is magic. Pure, life-saving magic. Our ancestors had just unlocked humanity's first superpower. But every superhero origin story comes with a terrible price, and this one nearly cost us everything. Because what happened next split our species forever, creating a gap so vast that those who mastered this new power would rule the earth, while those who didn't would vanish without a trace. The question is, what were the first words that saved humanity, and why did some groups survive while others disappeared into the darkness of forgotten history?
Then, around 5,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, a lonely accountant stared at his clay tablet and had an idea that would change civilization forever. What if words could be captured? What if they could live beyond the person who spoke them? His first attempts were pathetic, just simple records of grain and sheep, but he had no idea he was about to break humanity free from its greatest limitation. Within centuries, people realized they could preserve anything in writing. Love letters that would make hearts flutter across generations. Stories that would inspire children not yet born. Laws that would govern societies for thousands of years. And yes, even recipes for making beer. Because, apparently, some priorities never change. But writing did something almost supernatural. For the first time in history, knowledge could outlive the human body. A farmer's son in Egypt could learn techniques discovered by a farmer's daughter in China, even if both farmers had been dead for decades. It was like humanity suddenly developed a shared memory that stretched across continents and centuries. The impact was staggering. Each generation no longer had to start from scratch. They could build on the wisdom of those who came before, standing on the shoulders of giants who had been dust for centuries. Civilization had found its secret weapon.
But this breakthrough came with a terrible cost. Those who could read and write gained unimaginable power over those who couldn't. Knowledge became a weapon, and literacy became the ultimate advantage in the battle for survival. The gap between the educated and uneducated grew into a chasm that still divides our world today. The year 1440, a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg stares at his revolutionary machine, unaware he's about to trigger an explosion that will reshape human consciousness forever. With the pull of a lever, he can copy an entire book in hours instead of months. The world is about to change, but nobody realizes the catastrophe that's coming. Before printing, books were so precious they were literally chained to library shelves like prisoners. Only the wealthy and powerful could afford them. Knowledge was locked away, guarded like treasure. But overnight, Gutenberg's machine made books cheap enough for ordinary people to own. Information that had been exclusive to the elite suddenly belonged to everyone. The impact was devastating to the old order. Power structures that had lasted for centuries crumbled. Common people could now read the same books as kings. They could question authority, challenge traditions, and think dangerous new thoughts. Revolution was literally being printed on every page. But the printing press did something even more profound. It forced languages to choose sides. Before printing, English in London was completely different from English in Scotland. Every region had its own version of the language. Printers had to pick one version to mass produce, and whichever version they chose became the winner. The others slowly faded into history, taking entire ways of thinking with them. It was like a linguistic survival of the fittest, where printing presses became the judges of which languages would live and which would die. Some dialects gained superpowers and conquered the world. Others vanished without a trace, leaving behind only echoes in old documents. And then something incredible happened. A playwright named William Shakespeare began inventing words at a pace that seemed almost superhuman. Eyeball, fashionable, lonely, over 1,700 words that we still use today poured from his imagination. Why? Because for the first time in history, one person's creativity could reach millions of readers. The printing press had turned individual genius into global influence. Language evolution, which had crawled forward over thousands of years, suddenly shifted into hyperdrive. But this was just the beginning. The real acceleration was still coming.
If the printing press was a rocket, the internet was a nuclear explosion. Suddenly, a teenager in Seoul could invent a phrase that teenagers in Sao Paulo would be using the next day. Language evolution went from taking centuries to happening in seconds. We were witnessing something that had never occurred before in human history. LOL, selfie, Googling, ghosting. These words didn't exist 30 years ago. Now they're in official dictionaries, recognized by the most prestigious linguistic institutions on Earth. We're not just observing language evolution anymore. We're all participants in a real-time experiment that's reshaping human communication. But the internet unleashed something even more revolutionary. We began creating entirely new forms of language. Emojis became a universal picture-writing system that works the same whether you're in Tokyo or Toronto. A crying laughing face means the same thing to a farmer in rural Kenya and a businessman in downtown Manhattan. For the first time since the Tower of Babel, humanity was approaching a truly shared language. And now, artificial intelligence is making language barriers disappear completely. You can have real-time conversations with people who speak completely different languages, their words instantly transformed into yours. We're approaching something humans have never possessed, truly universal communication, where anyone can talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime.
But this unprecedented power comes with an unprecedented danger that most people don't see coming. So here we stand, 300,000 years after that first desperate grunt in the African wilderness. We've journeyed from 30 chimp sounds to over 7,000 human languages, from words that vanished into thin air to messages that circle the globe faster than lightning. We've broken free from every limitation that once trapped human communication. But we're not finished. Brain-computer interfaces are being developed right now that might let us share thoughts directly, without words at all. Virtual reality is creating new forms of communication that engage all our senses simultaneously. The next chapter of language might not involve sounds, or writing, or even conscious thought. The question that will determine humanity's future is this: will these new forms of communication bring us together or tear us apart? Will they make us more human or less human? And are we prepared for the consequences of what we're about to unleash? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that every breakthrough in human communication changes everything. And the next one is already here.